Good morning, everyone. I want to extend a warm welcome to all of our guests this morning from across the state of Oregon and the Pacific Northwest. My name is Ted Patterson. I'm the director of the Center for Family Enterprise at Oregon State University, and we are so glad to have you with us this morning. For those of you who are new to our Family Business 360 events, I want to tell you a bit more about the Center for Family Enterprise. The center has been around since 1985 with the goal of helping family businesses in the region thrive and educating advisors who support family businesses. Our center focuses on three areas: outreach, education, and research. Events like Family Business 360 are part of our outreach activities and are central to the center's mission. We host these virtual events monthly and plan to continue to do so virtually even after the pandemic is behind us, so that as many people across Oregon and the Northwest can benefit from them. The Family Business 360 events contribute to our goals by facilitating family business storytelling. As family businesses share their experiences, other family businesses can benefit from their successes and failures. Before we start today, there are a few reminders that we'd like to make you aware of. First, if you could rename yourself with your name and your company's name. We also encourage you to stay muted except during the breakout sessions. And if you're able to keep your video on, that would be helpful for us to be able to see you all out there. And we welcome questions for the speakers or myself. You can send those through the chat at any time. For better viewing, we encourage you to switch your view to speaker view during the Q&A section later in our time together today. Our time together will be in 4 parts. First, we will put you into breakout sessions where you will have a brief opportunity to introduce yourself to your fellow attendees. Following the breakout rooms, you will hear from our presenters today from Miles Fiberglass. We're joined by Alex Luchak and Lori Oland. After they speak, we'll welcome everyone back into another breakout session with specific questions around today's topic. And finally, we will have an opportunity to engage with Alex and Lori in a question and answer session to conclude our series. So let's go ahead and give you an opportunity to get to know one another. We'll send you into breakout rooms for about 4 minutes to do a brief introduction amongst yourselves. Think of this as an opportunity to get to know the people sitting at your virtual table. We'll see you back here in about 4 minutes. I hope that you had some good conversations in your breakout rooms, and you'll have another opportunity to chat with the people you met later in our program today. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenting family business with us here today from Clackamas, Oregon. Miles Fiberglass is a company that creates and distributes composites to various business sectors, ranging from wind turbines to military products and more. Miles Fiberglass is a solutions-focused family business that has been in operation since its founding in 1963. With us today to share more about Miles Fiberglass is Alex Luchak, Director of Sales and Marketing, and Lori Oland, President at Miles Fiberglass and Composites. Welcome, Alex and Lori, and thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us. Good morning, and thank you for having us today. Miles Fiberglass was founded by my grandfather, Lowell Miles, in 1963. My grandfather attended the Portland Boat Show in 1960. He was so impressed by a single fiberglass boat that was on display next to all the other wood boats. This fiberglass boat stood out from all the others with its brand new shiny gloss materials and captivated his imagination, and the seed was planted for our business. Today, we have over 90 employees that perform a variety of processes that serve several different industries. When my grandfather started the business in 1963, my mother was born. She was the third of 3 girls. They didn't have enough money to pay for her birth, so he traded the doctor 2 canoes that he had made to pay for the labor bill. It was a rough start for them, but also planted the seeds for his creativity and tenacity. In the early years of the business, my grandmother, Janet Miles, was busy with her girls, so she was not involved in the company until much later. My grandfather worked all the time, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. My grandmother painted the house and did whatever it took to keep the household going. She refused handouts and sewed all the family's clothes by hand. We differentiate ourselves in several ways. The most prominent way we're different from most other fiberglass companies is that we do not sell our own products. We are a high volume service-based company that only has one proprietary product that I'll talk about later. Customers come to us with blueprints and we take their ideas from paper to product. A second way that we differentiate ourselves from our competitors is that we service many different industries, whereas our competitors service just one or two or sell their own product. In 2008, the financial crash happened. At that time, 80% of our sales were in the RV market with 8 different customers. 6 of our 8 RV customers went out of business owing us money. We went down to 15 employees and management cut their wages by 40%. We closed one of our facilities, the other one we owned to save, or the one we owned to save costs and keep the doors open. We also sold our other facility to the county to keep afloat as the financial crash lingered. The biggest change we made was to start a new division in the wind sector and diversify into 5 different markets. The sole proprietary product that we do have that we developed to help diversify during these tough times is the Miles Ultra Bay. This is a lubrication pit collection system that replaces traditional concrete pits that are traditionally used at places like Jiffy Lube and Pep Boys. These fiberglass bays can be used for residential as well as commercial applications for vehicle oil changing. We are unique in that we service several different industries. The industries that we diversified into in 2008 to help us get through the tough times are, and these are not in any specific order, military, heavy and light rail, train, RV transportation, industrial tanks, wind energy service, techs, and service bays. Before COVID hit, we were set to move both facilities into one in the fall of 2020. Then COVID hit and caused a 4-month downturn and a partial closure. The PPP loan helped with this and helped with our payroll and employees. One thing we did during this downturn was pivot and manufacture face shields to sell and donate to the community and help keep our employees employed. During our move, while all this was going on, we had a giant surge in sales that we had to produce and figure out logistics of how to make this possible. One of the things we did was only move one building at a time and continue to operate out of the other one, which was our Oregon City facility, until the first facility was completely moved in. Then the Clackamas County wildfires hit during the move, which also made the move more challenging and difficult. During COVID, we diversified our company's sectors yet again by adding communications as a new industry served, while also adding 2 new additional companies to our existing sectors. These companies are SpaceX, FlareSpace, and Heartland RV. FlareSpace is a van conversion company based in Evergreen, Colorado. We produce fiberglass side-out flares that are then installed in place of the back windows. By adding these flares on each side of the van's back 2 windows, it gives enough space in the Sprinter van to place a bed sideways in the back. Heartland RV is an RV company located in Napa, Idaho. We manufacture their front and back fiberglass motorhome caps. SpaceX is a rocket company based in Hawthorne, California, that has a subsidiary company called Starlink, based in Redmond, Washington. They aim to produce affordable high-speed internet to anyone, anywhere on Earth or in space. For Starlink to go live, they need to deploy around 30,000 satellites in orbit that can communicate with each other. For each of these 30,000 satellites deployed in orbit, they need to have ground communication hubs here on Earth to communicate with. These ground communication hubs are placed outdoors in different locations around the world, outside in the elements. We manufacture the base plates and covers for each of these ground hubs to protect them from the outdoor elements. These ground hubs and base plates and housing covers must be made from fiberglass in order for the radio frequencies of the satellites to pass through and communicate easily with the ground hubs without interference. Another new subdivision to our wind and tech sector, field tech sector, is that we have recently added a mobile electric bus repair service. Over the past few years, the government has been making a push to go electric and providing grants and monies for municipalities and cities to switch their city buses over from gas to electric. With new electric buses out on the road, we started to get calls from these bus manufacturers, such as Proterra, with a need to fix their damaged buses that have gotten in wrecks. As of now, we have a team of 5 techs that handle this portion of the business for us. However, we are looking to grow this side of the business to hopefully replicate the wind tech sector, which is currently around 30 techs. Now I'm going to let my mother, Lori, talk a little bit about the family dynamics of the business.
Thank you, Alex. This is our management team and the family members on the management team. So as you can see, 6 of the 10 managers are family members, not counting my father, making it a challenge at times, but you could also look at it like we all have the same drive and we all have the same goals to succeed. We won the OSU Family Business Award in 1999 for medium-sized business, and we were so excited. The process of applying really helped us start thinking of planning for succession and the governance of our business. And from then on, we started working on it. It was a great experience. This was well before the 3rd generation was involved in the business. And we won the OSU Family Business Award again 8 years later in 2017, after the 3rd generation had entered the business. This time it was for family harmony. My dad said that night, the award for him, family harmony, meant so much to him because of the importance of keeping family harmony while running the business, which you all know is not an easy thing to do. One of the first things we did before the 3rd generation joined the business was to set criteria for entering the business. This is our criteria. And I know it's hard to read, and one of the reasons I put it in. I would caution to not make the criteria too many rules as we did here. It can be a detriment if you aren't careful. They can look at this and say, wow, really? Why would I want to go through all that? Or you could miss out on a great potential successor because someone didn't mark all the boxes. So I would just caution you, be careful at what you pick, the most important objections that you really, really want to have. And I'd be happy to share a copy of this to whoever would like one. Just email me and I can send it over. There may be some of the objections that you would like to use while creating your own. So I will spend a little more time on this slide because there is so much to explain, and we have put a lot of work into our succession planning. So one of my sisters is not involved in the business. So in 2000, it was decided to buy her 1/3 ownership out of the business over a period of 11 to 12 years. An amount was set in 2000 for the value of 1/3 of the business at that time. My parents own the building that the company rents, and that's what we ran the business in. And we would pay rent to my mom and dad. They gifted her 1/3 ownership of the building so she could receive 1/3 rent. And this is how we paid her for the 1/3 share of the business. Since 2010, we had worked on succession and business planning, but we really picked it up in 2016. We decided it was time to get into the difficult parts. My dad was getting up there in age and had turned 80. So we dove into the difficult stuff that you really don't want to talk about. He was still coming into the office at that time. So we talked about retirement for him, and it was uncomfortable. We had already given him 3 retirement parties because we thought he wanted to retire. But then it just seemed like he enjoyed having the parties. He finally admitted that he wasn't going to fully retire anytime soon, and that was fine with us. We just needed to really hear that from him, and this is why communication is so important. We set up a state trust for the first and second generations. We also set prenuptial rules for the third generation. We updated our operating agreement and our buy-sell agreement. We purchased life insurance on my sister and I so that the company would buy the heirs out of the stock if something were to happen to either of us. So family members not involved in the business or blood relatives cannot own stock. So if they inherited the stock, the company could buy the stock back with the life insurance money. We developed an exit strategy by doing some extensive financial planning for retirement and transition plan from the first generation to the second generation. This year, we transferred the remaining building ownership of Lowell and Janet to myself and my sister. So now all 3 of us are owners of the building. We had over the years transferred non-voting stock to my sister and I. In 2020, we decided to start transferring voting stock from my father to my sister and I beginning in 2021. So the first thing we decided we needed to do was establish a price for gifting purposes and tax purposes. So we had a stock evaluation done. It was a good time to do it because we just come off 2 bad years and the value was low. The Cogents Group did our valuation and I would highly recommend them. We started transferring voting stock in 2021. We still are working on the remainder of the state transfer so that we can avoid as much inheritance tax as possible. In 2021, at the age of 84, my father developed cancer. So we are so glad we had done all this work prior. He's doing well, but he does only come into the office once a week for a meeting. I really can't even imagine trying to go through all this planning now at the time when he's ill. So we're so glad we had done all that. What we do for our family harmony, communication is hard, as we all know, but we work constantly to improve it. We have weekly management meetings, bi-weekly finance and strategic planning meetings to help with this. We meet annually, mostly to perform annual minutes. The annual meeting isn't as important as the weekly or strategic meetings because you should have most of your work and communications done and continually communicating. Family members try to work in different departments, and this has helped a lot. We try not to report directly to each other, but sometimes that's unavoidable. We try to have open communication, but this is a work in progress. We have just hired a communications and marketing director, and he's a big help with this. We vacation together, and I feel that that helps with communication. My parents have a house on the Clamor River, and we spend time up there a lot. I've noticed that since my father has become ill, we've spent less time up there, and our communication has deteriorated. We need to get back to going up to the river. What we've learned to treat your employees like they're family members so they don't feel like outsiders. The best part about a family business is relying on each other. They have the same investment and goals as you do. Give back to your community. Employees don't leave a job because of money, mostly because they don't feel valued or part of something bigger. Community involvement is a way of showing them that you care more about the community than just your company. Family business is hard, and remember, you are not alone. It takes events like this and the webinars to hear from other family businesses and be reminded that they have the same issues you do. And it's nice to hear how others deal with these issues. But most important, I say have fun. You work so hard, don't forget to have fun and celebrate even the very small things. So thank you for having us, and we can take questions if you like.
Yeah, Alex and Lori, I appreciate you telling us more about your business. I'm curious if you could go back to that last slide.
Yeah.
if each of you would take a moment and just give us an example of some of the things that you do on each of these bullet points. I'd like some specifics that might be helpful for those in the audience. Thanks.
Mhm. So when we say treat your employees like family, we even have them up to the river. Employees, we've had parties up at the river. We've had parties at our house. You know, we treat them like family. We encourage them to, we hire family members. So brothers, sons, fathers, husband, wives. It's like there's a lot of family members that work here too. So we try and do whatever we can. We do bowling parties, ping pong parties. We just try and include them in as much as we can, and include them in the community involvement stuff too. They're always coming down to help with the community stuff that we do.
One bullet point I can talk on is relying on each other and your family members. We do this a lot. We fall on this a lot and rely on our family members a lot. And for example, my job right now on the front end admin is entering all the purchase orders and sending the confirmations back to the customers. And then I send the reports of what is purchased down to my brother down on the floor. And he relies on me to give him accurate information and help him out as best as I can and make it clear and easy for him to read. So then he can schedule all the product that goes out onto the floor. And then he relies on my stepfather, Forrest, who is the floor manager, to make sure that all the guys get the product done and built efficiently and in the correct time frame that my brother schedules it for the customers. My mom is the head and relies on all of us. And so we kind of play domino and rely on each other for all different aspects of the business.
With the community, one of the big things we do is we have, there's a composite merit badge for Boy Scouts, and we have them come in and make carbon fiber walking sticks. They've made canoes, paddle boards, so that they can earn their badge. And we have the employees come in and help with that. And they really enjoy being a part of that and helping with the kids. And we do stuff with internships with the schools, and we try and involve them as much as we can, either by going to the schools and doing demonstrations or just doing tours and things like that.
Another way we give back to the community is there's a Parrot Creek Ranch, which is a troubled boys and girls school camp up in Oregon City. And we have them come annually to build a fiberglass canoe that they take on their camping trips up to the lake, and then they use it. And they really enjoy building the canoe that they later get to use in the summertime. Another way we give back to the community is we sponsor golf holes for the chamber, and we're involved with Clackamas Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Case Manufacturing School in Oregon City. I usually go there annually on their manufacturing day to present to them and tell them about our business and what we do to get them excited about then going out into the world and getting a job in manufacturing. Anything else?
No.
And then perhaps you could give us a little more detail if you go back one more slide on the succession planning. One more, there you go. How did this process start? Who led the conversation? Did you involve outside parties to help? What were some of the sticky points that maybe took some real conversation to move forward on? Maybe you could just give us a little more detail about how you handle that.
So it first started probably at a OSU family business breakfast. I think it was on Succession. So that kind of planted the seed. And then when we went to apply for the first award, it's pretty rigorous what you have to go through. And there's a lot of questions. We didn't win the first round, and I don't even think we won the second round. It was our third time applying that we finally won, and it was just continually doing more and more for the succession. So that started it. And then I think the sticky part is probably the stock valuation, the transferring of stock. That's hard to talk about. And the voting stock, especially, my dad was not ready to give up the voting stock. So just this year, he gave up the voting stock, but not the majority. So he's still hanging on to that majority voting stock, which is fine with us, but it's kind of funny. It's like his baby. He cannot let that go. So those are sticky points. I think it was a difficult conversation to have with my third sister, not me, when she decided she wasn't going to be involved in the business. That was difficult, and how to compensate her for that. That was really very difficult. And I think how we ended up doing it was probably the best way, and leave it to my dad to invent that idea. So, and it's all done, it's all been compensated for. So it all worked out good.
You talked about how important it was that you had gone through this process in advance of your father's cancer diagnosis, to not have to be going through all these difficult conversations on top of a really difficult time medically. So as you think about the next succession, you know, it often seems like in family businesses, by the time you get one succession figured out, it's time to start thinking about the next one. And so what plans are you putting in place? What comes to mind when you think about how we learn from the last succession to make sure we do it better the next time? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, I think that one of the most difficult things that we've just been through, because Alex just got married 2 weeks ago, and we had to go through the whole prenuptial agreement with his wife. And so that was the first time, and that was difficult. Actually, it's the second time, because I got married 10 years ago, and that's the first time we did it. But so he's the third generation that went through that. And once you explain it, they get it. You know, they understand that they don't want the family business to end up in the hands of somebody who's not a family member. So that was difficult. I think the other lesson we learned was start early. We started probably too late with my dad transferring stuff. We still have a lot to transfer, and he is ill. So transferring items early, like stock and real estate, stuff like that. It's better to have the plan and start it early.
I was going to say, for me with my wife, it was a little bit tricky when the term prenup came up, because she immediately thought, you know, it meant everything. And I had to kind of explain to her that it was just the business portion and why my grandfather had set it up that way. And once I explained it to her, she was all for it, and she was fine with it.
Well, congratulations, Alex. That's
Thank you.
exciting. Yeah, so it sounds like, you know, you're planning on having these conversations early and often, and what are, you know, each generation gets bigger, right? So with Lori, it was you and your two sisters, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so, you know, as we move to the next generation, now we've got cousins involved, right, in the business.
Yeah.
And how many active members of the family are there in the business from that next generation, Alex's generation, and how many others are not involved but maybe owners in the business?
So it just ended up this way. My sister that's involved, she had 3 kids, and they just ended up doing totally different careers. One's a teacher, one's a state police detective, and then the other one's an X-ray technician. So they weren't interested in being involved. So that made it a little bit easier. My other sister, she has a son, and he's involved, but he doesn't really want to be, you know, in management. So it's just the 2 boys. And even that can be difficult.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So Alex, was it a natural fit for you to be more in the sales side, and how did you kind of come to that position? And then maybe you can speak for your brother a little bit in terms of how each of you kind of found your way in the family business.
Absolutely. So I went to Oregon State for a couple years, and then I finished at Clackamas Community College. But always in the summer times during high school, I would work here in the factory out on the floor, really in cleanup and some of the maintenance stuff and doing the grunt work around the shop. So I had a base for, knowing what it was like out there in the summers through high school. Then I went to college, and after college was right around 2008, 2009, when the financial crash happened. And my family was struggling, the companies were struggling, and they just happened to get a contact with Vestas, the wind company. And Vestas had this huge project in contract for them, but they needed 30 people to go out for several months at a time. And they needed them like in 2 weeks in order to fill the contract. So me just graduating college, my mom asked me if I could get a hold of friends that would be interested in doing this kind of work and going out traveling. And I said, absolutely, I know a lot of friends. So I filled about 20 of the 30 positions with all my friends. And we all went out on the road and traveled, and I climbed wind turbines and started in that side of the business, fixing fiberglass wind blades. And so I did that for about 3 or 4 seasons, and then came back to the factory and learned how to do all the spraying of fiberglass in the booths, and started in production, the production side of the floor out there, and did that for a few years. And then once I got a good understanding of all the different positions out in the facility, I was asked to come into management and start in the office. And that's how I started with sales. So I did sales for about 3 or 4 years, only sales, and would go to trade shows and get customers off the floor at trade shows and really just try and get more business for the company. So I did that for a number of years, and now they recently have moved me. I still kind of do sales periodically, but they've moved me to the front admin of handling all the purchase orders and dealing with the customers and that side of the business. So I feel like my mom has kind of strategically been moving me around, trying to get me in all the different positions. My brother's taken a little bit of a different route. He went to Oregon State and was in the Austin Family Business Program, graduated there. And then he came straight to the shop and started running the floor at our Oregon City facility. And back on a couple slides before, my mom had the list of all the different things boxes that you had to check off before they kind of tossed that out and did away with it. And there was a little bit of tension and animosity there because I went through all those boxes before they kind of tossed that out. And then he started and joined after college, and he didn't really have to go through those different boxes. So, but we worked through it, and I really rely on him a lot now. And he is the scheduling he does the scheduling of all the product that I send him to be scheduled for the floor. And we work together really well.
That's great to hear. I appreciate you sharing that. And
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to get that perspective. Each family is different, each family business is different, but we can also kind of learn from each other how you've handled those experiences where, maybe things don't seem fair in some ways, but you kind of work through that. So that's important. Thank you so much for sharing. We're looking forward to more question and answer, and we'll get some questions coming from our audience here shortly. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and allow our participants to talk a little bit about what they've learned so far. So we're going to put up some reminders for you. We're going to have actually closer to 20 minutes in this breakout session. We've gotten feedback that you really enjoy the networking aspect of these events. So we're going to give you some extra time this morning to talk. We want to remind you to turn on your video so you can see each other's faces. Make sure your microphones are on so you can chat with each other. And we've got some questions to get your conversations started. If you could take a screenshot of these, that would be great. And we'll try and put those in the chat as well, but those don't always carry over into the breakout room. So if you could take a screenshot of those. We've got some conversation starters for the family business members. And then for our professional advisors that are in their own breakout rooms, we've got some questions for you all as well to get the conversation started. We do want to make sure that these events are educational. So we want you to focus on what you've learned and how you can apply what you've learned this morning in your own family business, especially in thinking about the challenges that Miles Fiberglass faced in the last 2 economic downturns and how they use those to pivot into new businesses and to leverage their growth. So as you think about those, we also would like you to come up with a question as a group that you'll pose to Alex and Lori in our Q&A session. You can send those to me in the chat once we come back from the breakout sessions. So focus on these conversation starters, then come up with a question, and then we'll come back to the main room to conclude today with a Q&A. So let's go ahead and send you off into the breakout sessions for about 20 minutes. You enjoyed your breakout sessions. At this time, I'd like to welcome back Alex and Lori to answer some questions. I've got a few of my own for them, but I'd also like to encourage you to submit questions directly to me via the chat function. Hopefully you came up with some good ideas during your breakout sessions, and I look forward to asking those questions of Alex and Lori. I'd like to start off though with, you shared some things that the business has gone through that were really difficult. For example, it sounded like the 2008 economic downturn was especially difficult on the business. In the wake of those types of challenges, how have you embedded a sense of resilience in the organization, in the employees, and the way that you run the company?
I think most of it is communication. You know, constantly we would talk to them weekly about business that we're trying to get in or getting in. And we did have some layoffs, but we also let them know that we took a cut in pay and that we were doing everything we could to keep the business afloat. Like if we shut down the Oregon City building, we let them know why and, you know, how much that's saving us, and just constantly telling them that we would make it through. Yeah.
Another way that we kind of showed the employees resilience and that we were there for them was the management not only took pay cuts of 40%, but they would also, since we were down to only 15 employees, the management went out on the floor and actually started working themselves.
Yeah, that really helped too. Also, you know, we would do a lot of thing called job share or work share through the employment department, where you can work 3 days a week and then they collect unemployment 2 days a week. So just to show them that, you know, we wanted to keep them employed in any way we can. And that program is a great program because you get to keep your employees, and but yet they take unemployment for 2 or 3. You can do it up to 3 days.
Thank you. Another thing you mentioned in your slides was treating everyone like family. That can be a challenge sometimes in family businesses, depending on if you have the right last name or not. You might feel like you're really, you know, yeah, they say they treat everyone like family, but you're either part of the real family or you're not when it comes to things like promotions and things like that. How do you communicate to your employees, or, you know, the fact that you really do want the best person in each job, and it's not necessarily just whether or not you're a family member?
I think, you know, holding people accountable, and then also it's really helped with the boys being out on the floor and starting from the bottom. My father had me start from the bottom too, and I pretty much did almost every job in the office as well. I think, you know, we didn't bring them in and have a desk for them right at the beginning, and you know, they started from the ground up. That helps. Constantly in communication. They're still down on the floor a lot, talking to all the guys, you know, treating them with respect.
I still try and go out on the floor 1 day a week and go and work side by side with the guys in the chopping booth spraying glass. So I keep a pair of coveralls in my office here, and I'll go out there one day. And it's also nice to, you get to good camaraderie with the guys when you're out there with them, and they respect you not only as a family member or a son of an owner, but as a friend and a colleague.
Yeah, I've gone out on the floor and worked myself too, and it's really kind of fun. I really enjoy it, but you do get a whole different perspective. And when you're out there working with them, they tend to open up and, tell you a lot how they feel and what's going on. So it's a good learning opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Just a reminder to our participants, go ahead and send me some questions in the chat. I see a few have come in already. Keep those coming, and we'll keep the questions to Alex and Lori. I was also wondering about the importance of communication. You've mentioned it several times. What are the primary channels through which that communication takes place? You mentioned weekly meetings, annual meetings. Obviously, you're around each other a lot, just in-person communication. But what do you think are the important structures you've put into place to make sure that that communication is taking place?
One thing we started to use was Teams. It's a Teams chat. And so that's constantly when you're at your desk, you can chat with anybody at any time. And another thing we've done is we've included more people on our emails. So that's really helpful too. So everybody knows kind of what's going on all the time. And we have open door policies, so anyone can go into anybody's office at any time and chat, or set up a meeting if we need a meeting. We do meetings on the floor, just time clock meetings or random meetings at each department.
Another thing we've been toying with and periodically doing is in the management meetings, rather than calling it just a management meeting, we call it a production meeting. And we'll bring a lead man or somebody from each department and include them in the production meeting with us, so that they can see what it's like on the other side, and they can give us ideas, and they can be a part of the management meeting or production meeting.
So we've got a question from one of our breakout session groups. They asked about projecting future sales and coming up with valuations. So you talked about, that was one of a really challenging thing, was kind of buying your sister out of the business. So they were wondering if you have a method for projecting future sales, and or how you came to a proper valuation.
So that's because we only have, one of our own products or two of our own products. We rely on customers and their sales. So one thing that we do annually is we reach out to our current customers, and ask them what their projections are. And then we try and evaluate what that means to us in the part that we do. That's one way we do it. Another is we've updated our website, and that's basically where we get most of our sales from, is the website, people coming to us. And so we've updated that, and we've really have done a lot to move our website up in when people are searching, and that's really helped a lot too. But it is kind of hard to produce or project what our sales are. We didn't know we would get SpaceX. That just came through the website. So that when that happened, that was a huge uptick in sales, as well as Heartland. Those two just happened, and now we just have another one that came on, Whitewater. It's like the #1 company out of Canada that makes play pool,
water slides and fixtures for water theme parks around the world.
Yeah, and that's a huge piece of business for us too.
Well, that's exciting, picking up some really interesting, diverse clients. This next question is a two-part question coming from one of our groups. What advisor or meeting formats help transition the business for succession and ownership? So thinking about the role that advisors played, and what kind of formal meetings you had with all family members to kind of discuss the succession process.
We actually met the advisor at OSU Family Business Breakfast, and he presented there. it was Myatt Bell, and we followed up with him. And we also got a grant from OMEP, Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We got a grant with them that it was a matching grant. So we used that. Myatt Bell pretty much did almost all of the succession planning. And through OMEP, he kind of guided us. You know, he said, you need a financial planner to plan what you're going to need when you retire. You need a lawyer, Myatt Bell, to do this. So he kind of walked us through all those steps that we needed to do. And that's pretty much how we got started. It took a process of about 2 years to get through everything. It was a lot of work.
A lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The other part of the question was any tips that you can give the audience that worked best in helping with your succession planning?
One tip that I can come up with was try and make it fun. So we did it offsite up at my grandparents' river house, and we made a day out of it. So the family could kind of be together, and it really helped move it along and cut back on the tensions or anything that might arise from that. So we tried to make it a fun event rather than a serious business event.
And if you have a good advisor, they'll really help you through a lot of that too, the tension stuff. They'll give you a heads up on what the meeting's going to be about, and kind of, help you through all that.
Excellent. I had another question come in. So I remember that slide you gave, which was a lot of bullet points about how to work for the family business. Have you rewritten that? And if so, what points did you get rid of that you thought might have been too much of a deterrent?
The criteria for entering the company. We haven't redone it because we don't have any generation that's coming into the business. But I think I would get rid of, I think we put like you had to work for another company for 2 years or 3 years. So Alex went out on the field wind job, and that wasn't necessarily for another company, but being out on the wind job for 4 years, he really was answering to Vestas, Siemens, Clipper, so we counted that. So I think just being flexible with, taking what your goal is, and if the end goal meets the end goal, it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly what you put down. But yeah, I would get rid of a lot of that. It was quite extensive.
I was also interested in thinking about the future of Miles Fiberglass and Composites. What do you think the legacy is going to be of that family business as you look towards the future?
Moving forward, a vision I have for the future of our company and the way our company is trending, I see expansion in our field service side of our business as it continues to grow. We've grown our wind service field repair side by nearly 35 employees, up from 12 in just over a few short years. This also used to be seasonal work, and now it's year-round contract, so it's continual work. We also have hired a dedicated field service manager to organize and locate and help handle with the side of the business, and as it continues to grow. We've also just added, as I shared, our electric bus repair field service side of the company, and I see this growing much more in the future than just the five employees that we have now. I'd like to try, now that we have a dedicated field service tech manager, try and grow it to match the wind side. And it's really nice to have that side of the business grow, because there's not much overhead other than just the labor. You don't have to pay all the building rent and heat and all that stuff, because the guys are in the field constantly. So it really helps with the bottom line.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I want to thank Alex and Lori again for their presentation and for fielding our questions. We do appreciate you all joining us this morning. We've got a few items to ask you to help us with to close out. First, we'd like to ask you to fill out our survey. We do conduct these events monthly, so we want to improve them and do the best we can to make sure that you're benefiting from these events. So if you could go ahead and fill out our survey, I'll give you a minute or two to do that.
Oops. Shoot.
All right, while you're finishing up the survey, we'll go ahead and give you a few announcements and reminders. We'd like to invite you to participate in our next Family Business 360 event, which will take place on June 8th. The Thompson family will be joining us from Thompson Sanitary Services. I believe that they were on with us today, so we look forward to hearing their story next month. You can register today by clicking the registration link in the chat. We'll also be sending out an email reminder to get registered in the coming days. We also offer a continuing and professional education course called Advising Family Businesses. This is a 6-part course available separately, or you can bundle them together and take the 6 courses at a single shot. We encourage our advisors to consider getting their continuing and professional education hours through the course. You can check out more information about the course on our website, on the Oregon State University website. In the College of Business, you can find the Center for Family Enterprise website. We also want to recognize our Excellence in Family Business Awards winners for 2022. On May 6th, we had a in-person celebration of our award winners. For those of you that were unable to attend, we want to recognize the Papay Group as the Dean's Leadership in Family Business Award winner. We also honored Anderson Construction with one of our awards. They were the winner of our, I believe they were the International or Generational Leadership Award winner. And then we also honored Alyrica Networks with our Family Harmony Award, and the Melitas family from Oregon Fruit Products with the Business Renewal Award. So I want to honor each of these family businesses, as well as our student award winner, Joseph Banaqued, who has a family business in Oahu and shared his experience with us coming from a family business and learning at OSU how to go back and contribute to it. So thank you to all of you, again, for participating today. You can stay in touch with us at the Center for Family